Hi, I'm Bob Lilly with Lilly Insurance, and today I'm sitting here with Desiree of Paul Davis. They are one of our restoration companies that we use when things seem to go wrong within your house. And as you know, we've been on the theme about being prepared and having a plan. And with all the water backups that we've been having in St. Louis, I thought I better take in an expert and have her explain to us what's been going on and maybe what you can do to help prevent or lessen any damage that shows up. How you doing today, Desiree?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. It's so fun to have you here in the office.
Thank you.
So, has that been the number one claim you guys have been seeing for a while over house fires and hailstorms and things, just whole spring with the water levels being high in St. Louis?
Yes, we've had a lot. It goes in spurts. They're really quick droughts where fires aren't. So we do have fires,
Right.
but they last a lot longer. But yeah, it goes in spurts, and they'll all come in based on how much water there's been, how much rain there's been.
Right.
But a lot of backups. We haven't seen a lot with the flooding yet
Oh, that's good.
in our area.
Yeah.
But a lot of backups, a lot of
Okay.
groundwater.
Okay. So I'm a homeowner
Mm-hmm.
and I go into my basement because I'm getting ready for work and I just need to get something out of the dryer. And I notice I've got a half-inch of water floating around in the basement. What's the first thing I need to do?
Well, we always say to call your trusted advisor for your home. Typically, that's your insurance agent. And every agent has a different policy, but we encourage people not to file a claim right away unless it's obvious, like your house is on fire, because
Right.
you don't know what type of coverage you have or if it's covered. So call your agent and they'll, like Bob, and they'll typically refer you to a company that can help you clean it up. It's better that way. That way, you know you're being recommended to a trusted company, like a restoration company like Paul Davis or
Right.
whoever people are referring to. And so that's what we recommend. Call your agent, ask them who should come out there. And maybe the first person on site shouldn't be restoration. Maybe it needs to be a plumber.
Mhm.
So those are some things that we can talk to you about and get someone out there.
Okay, good. Now she brings up a couple of good points here because we've just recently had this happen with our customer. He called a restoration company on his own. They were actually on site because there's multiple homes having problems. And we found out that they were really overcharging. I'm not going to call them out on this video, but they're not a company that we would recommend using because they were taking advantage of the situation. Customer or restoration companies that we use don't do that. So you want to make sure you've got someone that's out there and trusted. If the water's already in the basement, it's urgent, but you can wait until you talk to your agent usually.
Yes. And,
Okay.
and once we are contacted, we have an agreement, like a service level agreement that we as a company follow, which is once you've contacted us or the homeowner has, we have to, make sure that we have a plan to go out there within 1 hour. So we have an appointment set and we have to be on site cleaning up within 4 hours.
Okay.
So that is with all water mint cases because
Right.
they can turn bad so quickly.
Mm-hmm. Now you brought up another point. I mean, I pay for insurance every single day of my life for my homeowner's insurance. Why would the claim not be covered?
Well, groundwater is never covered. So, and you know that. So groundwater is any water coming from a body or a bank of water that's coming into your home, right?
So like a flood,
A
is that what
flood.
you're, okay,
Mhm.
yep.
Or cracks in your foundation, that's considered a maintenance issue.
Mhm.
So things to prevent groundwater as a homeowner would be to check your gutters to make sure that they're turned away from your foundation. And also when it's raining and when it's really wet, like it has been, to just go into your basement if you don't frequent it often and look in the corners. Just make sure that there's no moisture down there. You can typically smell it and you can feel the difference in your basement if there is moisture. So just keep an eye on that stuff. But that's not covered. That's considered maintenance.
Okay. So very good points. Check your corners when it's raining. Check around your drain, see if something's coming out. Because if you go in prepared, maybe you prevent yourself from ever having this claim.
Yes, exactly.
And then the next thing that I'd like to bring up is, so they do have the groundwater and it's running in and it looks to be clear. So it probably came in up through the pump. What is it that you guys do once you get inside on site? It came up through the drain is what I meant to say.
Okay, so it's to the drain. So it's like a backup.
Backup.
Yep. So typically the first thing that we do when we're on site is try to find a source and
Okay.
understand, what that source is. And before we do a lot of work, we try to work with the agent and the homeowner to understand what the policy limits are, because we don't want to rack up a huge bill and then realize it's not covered.
Right.
We don't want to do that to a homeowner. Make sure that they have the endorsement, the backup endorsement
Mhm.
on their policy, and then what the limits are on that. And that doesn't take a long time.
Right.
We can start doing some stuff while we're working in the office to understand those things. And then the
Mhm.
first thing that we do is we start ripping it up. Carpet, baseboards, drywall, whatever's damaged, rip it up, and then we sanitize it.
Okay. Okay. So when you see that water in there and you call your agent, this is why you need to meet with your agent every year, because this is not a small matter and it's not covered underneath your standard insurance policy. You need to have, as Desiree said, the endorsement, which is called sewer and drain backup. That helps you even if your toilets back up to make sure that you have coverage. So clear water's kind of nice. You guys are going to come in and you're going to pump out all the water once you figure out that it's not coming in anymore, right? Like
yes,
it's
we
still
will
not
stop the
bubbling in.
source.
You'll
Yeah,
stop the source.
Yep.
Okay. And then they need to start drying it out. And that doesn't happen in an hour or so,
Right.
does it?
No, we typically have equipment on for 3 days.
Mhm.
We have air movers, dehumidifiers, air scrubbers if it's sewer issue or
Right.
if there's an odor to it, just to
Right.
purify the air. And we can't put any of that stuff in there until it's clean. So we wouldn't put
Okay.
air movers in there because all it would do if it's Blackwater is move around all the dirty particles and then it would get everybody
And
sick.
you don't want that.
No.
So you probably go in and shut off the heating and the air conditioning too,
We do,
depending on what time it
yes.
is. Okay.
We do. Yeah. And that's another thing is if you do have water in your basement, don't just throw fans on it because you don't know what kind of water it is. You don't know if
Mhm.
it's dirty water or if there's mold, and all that will do is spread the mold spores around.
Right. That's a very good point. Don't propagate the problem. Don't make it bigger. So if you wake up and there's water in your basement and you don't know where it's coming from, first thing you can do before you call us is turn your air conditioner off. I know you probably don't like that, but it's better to be a little warm than it is to be a lot moldy. All right. So they come in and you said you're there for 3 days. Does that surprise a lot of homeowners?
The air movers.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, what surprises them are, I guess, they're loud. They're very
yeah.
loud. And so we even leave material that say, don't turn them off. Whatever you do, they're very loud. They will get really annoying. You can't have conversations over them. If they're in the main living area of your home, it can get really, really, it can make people crazy a little bit.
I can imagine.
But yeah, 3 days is on average. We'll be there a couple times in those 3 days to check moisture
Right.
readings and to make sure that the fans are getting all the places, and then we'll move them around sometimes to make sure that the little like tight spots that are staying wet are getting dry.
Right, because it has to be purely dry before you even start any restoration. So we're not even at the rebuilding point yet.
No.
So you sucked out the water, you got these fans in, you're removing any carpet because it's moisture, damp, whatever. And so you need to get all that out of there. So we're talking about throwing away all your nice carpet in your basement.
Sometimes we can dry it. Depends on the type of water. If it's clean water, we can usually dry the carpet. If it's not, then we have to rip it all out. And same with drywall. Sometimes
Okay.
drywall can be
Can be saved? It can be.
saved unless
Okay.
it's dirty or if it's moldy, or then we just have to cut it.
And you cut it about how far from where the water line is?
That's a really good question. I think it's about 12 inches from where
Okay.
the water line is. We cut
Right.
up 12 inches, I think.
Yep. So once again, when you're thinking about these repair costs, remember, if the water is this deep in the house, we're cutting way up here and all that is going to have to be replaced.
Yep.
Okay. And you keep talking about Blackwater. Explain Blackwater a little bit.
So Blackwater is contaminated water. You're going to have Blackwater with toilet bowl overflows.
Which probably happens a lot more in the basement than it does the rest of the house,
yes,
right?
So specifically if there is fecal matter in gray water, so it's not black yet, but it's typically not. It's not incredibly clean.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, if you think about it, they say like the cleanest water, you should be able to drink it if it's considered clean.
Right.
There isn't any water that comes out of something and falls onto your ground, onto your floor that I would drink. They say that water in the back of the toilet bowl, the back of the toilet tank is clean. Would you drink that?
No, I wouldn't unless I was trying to survive. Exactly.
True.
Yeah.
So honestly, the class 1 water, we rarely see that. It's usually by the time it touches the ground, it's contaminated because your floors are dirty. Anyway, but we wouldn't rip carpet out for that reason. We would only rip carpet out if there's mold, poop.
Okay. So you can clean a wet carpet.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So the next place I wanted to go, when you talk about Blackwater and if you wouldn't drink it, don't walk in it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Call somebody. We don't really know what's floating around in there. I'm not saying you got a hazardous waste site in your house, but why not be careful? You don't need an infection or anything. of that nature. That just happened with the fecal matter coming up, the poop, right?
Yes.
Down in downtown St. Louis by River de Pere.
Yes.
If anyone knows, that area is completely flooded if you drive over it. And what kind of happened? What caused all this to go on? Because people don't think about that.
Yeah, to my understanding, there was a lightning strike maybe at MSD into one of their, I don't know if it was one of their pumps or one of their buildings, and it caused their pumps to stop working. So any homes on the specific street we were on, it was probably about 500 homes were affected.
Okay.
And the sewer backed up into their basement, and people had, anywhere from just damp carpet to a couple feet of water with poop in it. So
yeah,
it was,
it's not good.
It's bad.
It's not pretty.
It's bad.
And the point I think that we want to make right here is, let's say you live on a hill and you think everything's going to be okay and none of this stuff will ever happen to you. Well, if the sewer system shuts down, it could happen to anybody.
Yeah.
And that's why maybe you don't need as much coverage because it's not going to be as bad, but at least we should have the discussion and think about it, because you don't want to have to deal with it. And the worst thing is you're having to deal with it. You don't have the coverage and you're paying for it out of pocket.
Yeah.
Because none of these repairs are minimal.
No.
All right. And I'm going to just step back for a little bit. That's what Becky in my office has been finding when we've been reviewing policies over the past couple of years, is most people either have very minimal coverage or no coverage. And that makes the situation even harder for you.
Yeah, it's really tough.
That it's there. And then you'll get the perception that MSD is going to cover it. That may or may not be true. But as you said, if they are covering it, she said this off camera, that if they are covering it, it's going to take a little while, right? And so you don't want to be stuck in that situation where you need to get things up and running in your home and get back to living like you'd like to in your home without these fans. Your insurance company pays very quickly on things like these, because these are very easy to determine that you've got a real claim.
Right.
So we talked about a little bit about prevention, checking your corners and things like that, seeing if, during heavy rains, there's a little backup around your drain, because we haven't had rain like this in a while, but that doesn't mean next year's not going to be worse.
Sure.
So maybe there's something you could do today to get that out. How big an issue is mold in St. Louis?
Mold isn't a specific issue. I don't think, it's everything that mold needs to grow lives here in St. Louis.
Right. St. Louis is very humid.
Yeah. So mold is an issue when water damage goes untreated. So mold can grow within 24 to 48 hours of water damage. That's why if you see mold in your basement, water in your basement, it needs to be mitigated immediately. If you want to do it yourself, you can do it. You can rip the carpet up. If you know how long it's been there, a lot of people do that. If they're used to it, if it's a common issue. Here in Missouri, we have basements and we have water in our basements, and so we kind of know what to do. But if you don't know how long it's been there, it's important to get someone professional to look at it. But so mold is an issue in cases where homeowners aren't home and they have a water issue, and they'll get mold. A lot of times when pipes burst, it knocks out the HVAC and on rental properties and stuff like that, and mold grows, which is weird because it's freezing, but it can still grow. Right.
It's very resilient, isn't
it? Yes,
it is. And it's interesting that Desiree brings that up, because the biggest claim, we've had fires and kitchen accidents and things like that. The biggest claim we have had in our agency was a toilet overflow that ran for probably a week while these people were on vacation, and it destroyed their house. So water is not as scary as fire, not as scary as a tornado or lightning, but it is a damaging son of a gun. And unlike those other things, it gets everywhere, kind of like smoke seems to get everywhere. So it's a big deal. When you walk into this, let's just say that the customer has a basic amount, $5,000, $10,000. How much will that cover? Is that just getting the cleanup out and not the restoration? Is it, is it a ton of coverage? Because you hear $10,000, you think a lot of money, right?
Yes.
Give me $10,000, I'm heading to Target.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I'll just let that basement sit.
Exactly.
No, I think it depends completely on the situation. So let's just take the issue that happened in River de Pere for an example. Once you have that Blackwater in there, your cost just goes up automatically, because everybody has to be in personal protective equipment. It's category 3, and there's a higher charge for it. It's made more
Right.
dangerous, like anything like that.
Right.
So,
right.
and it also depends on what's in your basement. Is it finished? Do you have a lot of contents down there? So when you're looking at a claim like that, you're looking at the tear out, the cleanup, the put back, which is putting everything back together. If you cut your drywall out, you want to put it back. If you have hardwood floors and they have to be ripped up, you want to replace those. And then also your contents. So either replacing contents that were damaged or having them professionally cleaned, which we can do all of that. But so we're talking over $10,000 if all of that was the case, you know?
So in your excellent estimation and opinion, minimum $10,000 should be on the policy.
Yes, absolutely.
And if you're in an area that might be prone, maybe you should get that up. Or like you said, your basement is finished off with really nice things. You got a nice couch, you got a big TV. If that water happens to just take out your heater, you know, which has got the blower for the air conditioner, everything in it too, that's not cheap either.
No.
All those things
Exactly.
are something to take into consideration. So this video is obviously not meant to scare you. It is more that we want you to be prepared. We don't want to ever have to come out and say to you, you're not covered or you don't have enough coverage unless you tell us you don't want the coverage. But if you're prepared before it happens, you're going to be much better off if it does happen.
Yeah.
It's going to be a hell of a couple weeks, or a heck of a couple weeks, right?
Yes.
But other than that, you're going to recover from it.
Yeah, and something I always tell homeowners if they don't have it is, I don't know what every insurance company charges, but typically we're talking about a few dollars a month for the endorsement, which, you know, in the grand scheme of things, yes, you might save over the years, but if you have one claim, a few dollars a month, you're going to wish you had spent on that backup coverage.
Exactly. $60 a year is a drop in the bucket if something like this were to happen.
Yeah.
Perfect. Anything else you'd like to add? Or we were pretty comprehensive.
I think we covered it, yeah.
Hey, we're doing it better than we know.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you.
Please, guys, take a look at the video. And if you have any questions, give us a call.